Did you know that an Arab sheikh from Arabia was once released from an Ottoman prison in Serbia just so that he could go win a war against the Black Knight? You see, in the 1500s, the Ottomans began their rule over the western coast of the Arabian Peninsula. And during that time, they began making deals with the local Arab tribes, asking them to protect their trade caravans and the Hajj pilgrims from bandits and thieves as they made their way through the interior of the peninsula. And in exchange for their service, the Ottomans would pay these Arab tribes an annual fee. And one of these tribes is known by the name of Al-Ajman and were living in the southeast quarter of the peninsula in the province of Al-Ahsa. And in 1859, one of their most famous leaders would come to power. His name was Rakan bin Hithlain. He was a generous leader and was known to spend whatever wealth he had on the impoverished people living in the isolated deserts. As this went on, though, his influence in the region began increasing, and some of the neighboring tribal leaders formed an alliance with him, while others took him as an enemy. Soon he found himself at battle with some of these tribes, and he managed to defeat his enemies and create an emirate of loosely allied tribes. Soon enough, Rakan began increasing the fees that the Ottomans needed to pay for protection. The Ottomans refused these price increases, and Rakan ordered his men to stop any Ottoman caravans that passed through their territory until they paid in full. The Ottomans were now worried that the new emirate was growing too strong and that a war would eventually break out between the Muslims if things continued in this direction. So the Ottomans decided to announce a large reward for anyone who could capture Rakan and hand him over. In response, one of Rakan's men, who was responsible for collecting the fees from the Ottomans, betrayed him and told them his location. The Ottomans, using this information, set up an ambush for Rakan and managed to arrest him, taking him back to Istanbul as a prisoner. Rakan was soon sent far north to a castle in Niš, a city in modern-day Serbia. And even though he was in exile, the Ottomans did treat him well. They had appointed several servants to Rakan, and Rakan even developed a close friendship with Hamza al-Uthmani, the Ottoman officer responsible for him. But during this time, a rebellion broke out in Serbia, and the Serbs began fighting with the Ottomans just outside the walls of the castle. Rakan watched from the roof of the castle as the battle went on, and for 4 days, a huge Serbian knight in black armor, saddled on his horse, rode through the Ottoman lines and wreaked havoc, cutting anyone down who challenged him. He was a fierce warrior with an intimidating presence, and it seemed like he was going to single-handedly defeat the Ottomans if no one could stop him. So Rakan called Hamza up to the roof and told him to inform the Ottoman governor of Serbia to release him and to let him fight this fearsome knight. The governor at first refused, saying that Rakan was too thin and short and that the knight would crush him in battle. But as the battle continued between the Ottomans and Serbs, the Black Knight continued to devastate the Ottoman army, and soon the governor began to feel a deepening desperation. Once again, Rakan sent Hamza, now demanding him to release Rakan. The governor then met Rakan in person and agreed to his release, still unsure of how exactly Rakan would defeat such a large opponent. Rakan then chose a sword and one of the trained horses kept in the castle and got on top of it, riding it out into the battlefield. Once again, the Black Knight rode towards the Ottoman army, his horse galloping at full speed, and Rakan saw him and waited. As the Black Knight approached, it became clear how much he towered over Rakan and the rest of the Ottomans. Soon, he was right in front of Rakan, but Rakan found a weak spot in his armor and quickly sliced through him, killing him in an instant. His body now slumped over his horse, and the horse galloped away. And with the Black Knight now defeated, the Ottomans were able to attack the Serbians, and soon enough, Rakan had won the battle. It was a monumental moment for the Ottomans, and Rakan was the hero of the day. When Sultan Abdul Hamid II heard about what had happened, he issued him a full pardon and rewarded him with the Order of Courage. And then he offered him a high position in the Ottoman government, but Rakan turned it down, preferring to return back to his people in the deserts of Arabia. The Ottoman Sultan accepted this and gave him a large monthly salary for the rest of his life. And when Rakan eventually passed away, this salary was even transferred to his son. Rakan was a skilled warrior, a generous leader, and a man of his people. It's no wonder why he's still remembered amongst the Arabs of Arabia, even till this day. Like and follow for more Muslim facts.